Thanks for having us.
Just live now.
Great, I can see participants starting to come in, so we won't be a moment and we'll get started. Wonderful. Are we happy to commence?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Welcome to the inaugural We at inQ launch. It's an amazing event to have you along to. I can't wait to let you know more about our speakers and program today. We are here as an Australian government supported program with the support of the Australian and Indian ecosystem to support female-led and co-founded businesses to scale into India. So thank you to our audience, our supporters today, DFAT, GISA, Womanavator, Austrade, inQ, and our supporting partners and speakers you hear from soon. A huge congratulations to our cohort, the inaugural cohort for 2021, an incredible group of female founders ready to scale into India in the next 12 months. So across the next 3 months, we have the privilege of working with our partners and team to support our 2021 cohort to scale into India. I'm Hayley Saddington, I'll be your host today. I'm also the We at inQ Entrepreneur in Residence, along with Christy Whitehill and the team. Over to Malik Irfan. He is a major partner of the program, a global innovation thought leader, global market access scale-up facilitator. Malik runs government and corporate innovation programs. He's also the chair of the Australian Indian Business Council and the CEO of inQ, and as mentioned, a We at inQ major partner. Over to you, Malik.
Thank you, Hayley. Greetings, namaskar to all of you joining from India as well as all across Australia. Welcome on board this great spark-off launch session of We at inQ program. Can I start by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, and even virtually, and I pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. It's an honor and pleasure to be part of this spark-off launch event of We at inQ program, which has been something we've been curating for nearly a year plus as part of the Australia-India Innovation Bridge broader program. Whilst we've been working on helping various startups across various sectors scale across from Australia to India and India to Australia, we've been obviously quite actively seeking for more women entrepreneurs to also look at India as a market, and Australian women entrepreneurs to really consider India as another launch destination. Whilst this has been happening, we've also had Australia-India collaboration, getting to the strategic, comprehensive strategic partnership level, and that's also facilitated quite a lot of accelerated activities and opportunities for various startups and scale-ups. With that in mind, obviously we inQ both ways, from Australia to India, supporting Australian women entrepreneurs to scale from Australia to India, as well as Indian women entrepreneurs to look at Australia as the next destination for them to be supported through Scale Up Market Access Program, has been in forefront of our mandate and also our plans. And great to be partnering with Womanavator, both in India, Tripti and team there in India, and also with the successful launch of Womanavator Australia, working closely with Women Entrepreneurs Association, and then being supported by Department of Industry, Science, Energy and Resources, a great team there the DFAT team here in Australia and India, as well as Austrade, and all our ecosystem partners, the incubator accelerators here in Australia and India as well, who are broadly supporting us with various initiatives. Our ultimate goal is obviously launch more women entrepreneurs across this bridge and to have successful, startups and scale-ups across these markets. And who knows, we'll have more successful unicorns as well, women-led. So that's something which is a core pillar for inQ, and we are passionate and we are thankful that we've got great partners both sides. So I look forward to this great event. Thank you, Haley, Christy, Natalia, for putting this together, and all the speakers and all you attendees. I'm sure you'll get great outcomes from this session, and look forward to closely working with you on ongoing terms as well. Thank you again. Over to you.
Thank you, Malik. Thanks for your tremendous support and letting us know how that all works. It's an absolute privilege to be working with you again. Over to Christy Whitehill, founder of Tech Ready Women. Christy's supported over 1,000 women now, with even Tech Ready creating 200 plus companies. So Christy is also a fellow entrepreneur in residence for the We at inQ program, and also a director of one of the major supporters, CWEO, or the Women Entrepreneurs Association. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you, Haley and Malik. I absolutely love your passion for supporting women entrepreneurs in Australia and India. Definitely all for creating more female-led unicorns. That is definitely a passion of mine and Haley's. I think that's why we've all come together to create this program. As Malik mentioned, we have been actually talking about this for quite a while now. So it's really exciting that this program has now come to life. And there are so many amazing, great partners on board to support the cohort who will be going through the We at inQ program. And for those of you who are on the call today who are interested in India as a market, I really believe that there is no other better market for Australia than India. I have been looking at India for the past 4 years and talking with Malik many times on this topic, and I really feel like for Australia startups there's a huge opportunity, and vice versa with Indian startups coming to Australia as well. So very excited to be supporting this program and working with Haley, Malik, Natalia and the team at Tripti from Womennovator in India as well on this program. So very excited, and very excited to hear the speakers today as well. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Christy. Definitely join you on that same passion point, having, working on our own startup and scaling that into India, and just learning about how incredible the market is. So we're so excited to be bringing our cohort that same advantage with our partners on the ground as well. So in terms of what we're going to be focusing on is our cohort is coming through. They're going to learn around the market access aspect of India. And then we're going to show them how to start up their business in India. It's all about actively connecting the cohort with incredibly established industry aligned partners, both on the ground here in Australia and in India. So this is all to ensure that they can actually enter India and thrive when they arrive. So it's my pleasure to join with the cohort as a supporting partner, and also as a co-entrepreneur in residence with Christy. As a passionate female-led company myself, very much in this space, and very much a champion, and looking forward to supporting the cohort, and thanks to the team for bringing it together. We also have an incredible founder, Tripti Signal, and a major partner of the program joining us this afternoon. I'd love to introduce Tripti. Tripti founded Womennovator, our major partner. It's, I guess you could call it's an incubator. It's one of the first virtual incubators in India. It educates, inspires, and it's connected 800,000 women in 100 cities. And I know that's growing too, Tripti, with across 100 sectors. And it's in over another 20 countries. So thank you so much, Tripti, to speak today. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Haley. And like I said, it's a pleasure to be part of the program, because whatever we are doing, Womennovator, when we started, our aim is very, very simple. We want to aim at real women GDP. And for that matter, whether it's entrepreneurs, social activists, or leaders, we have to make sure that they are at the right places and at the right time. There are different initiatives taken by our programs, and I'm really happy that we are running our third cohort now in India as well, with more than 120 women being incubated by us. I think from a networking initiative to our incubation is what is something we are proud of. And all our partners, we have our influencers, I can see, who are the pillars. I always believe that to grow a community with the kind of zeal we have, the passion we have, Heli, you, Christine, and Infanji has brought in, we have more than 200 influencers who are working with us day and night to support other women, because India is huge in terms of population and so customer base for people who are thinking to start their operation in India today. We will be listening to them. We have our influencers, Seema, Saloni, Simi, Swati, and Sandhya Prakash. They've been joining to understand what these women from Australia we have selected are doing and how we all can come together. It's just not about women innovator, it's about our influencers who are initial pillars of us, who will be listening and understanding what is the challenges and how they can support all these female founders. So we are really excited. Welcome, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting us today. And we are really proud partners of this program.
Thank you so much, Tripti. I couldn't agree more. What we can get from partners, and with phenomenal partners like you to have on board to really support our cohort, is that experience that you've derived and successfully displayed in so many other female founders. So thank you so much for all your support. I would now like to welcome a Weird inQ advocate and, of course, the Senior Trade Commissioner of Austrade, Mr. Munish Sharma. Sorry, Munish, over to you.
Thanks so much. Can I just also start by adding my thanks to inQ, Irfan, and everyone else, and all the partner organizations for coming up with this very important initiative, and we're very proud to be associated with it. So, look, it's fantastic to be part of this panel today, and first time from a gender diversity point of view. It's really great. I can see 18 panels in front of me, and 18 panels, and 3 men, and the rest of them are women. So it's really great to be part of this discussion today. And I'm really particularly pleased to be in a session where the women entrepreneurs are exploring business potential in South Asia, particularly India. Can I also acknowledge that last couple of months have been very difficult for people and communities across India, with COVID impacting people and livelihoods in a very unprecedented way. But India is very resilient, and it's pleasing to see that people are bouncing back. And I sincerely hope that the current wave of community transmission in Australia gets under control and the restrictions are eased for people. I'd just like to focus just for a few seconds about women globally these days are leading COVID responses as policymakers, activists, healthcare workers, community organizers, entrepreneurs, and business leaders, and are at the helm of many institutions. In my own organization at Austrade, diversity and inclusion is a business imperative for us, and we are making concerted efforts to promote diversity and inclusion within Austrade. We have our own D&I strategy, which includes a priority to increase the representation of women in leadership positions. We have a number of internal initiatives, and a key one is around flexible work arrangements for all staff regardless of gender. And to help parents share the responsibilities of childcare, we have, if not why not, position to flexible working requests. Externally, we are a client-focused agency, and we make positive contributions to the community we serve. So we aim to drive higher representation of women engaging and succeeding in international business. And it's very pleasing for me to note that there are already a number of women-led businesses that are successful in India. And I'd just like to name a few. Power Ledger, Village Energy, Synapse, we will hear from Margaret in a minute, Ventura, Salduja, just to name a few. And we're very keen to support many more here. Now, I'm very conscious that we also have the Consul General to South India, Sarah Kirlew, on the panel. So I'm going to skip my remarks on political and commercial relationship, as I'm sure Sarah will comment on them. And so I'd like to just focus on a couple of things only. One is just talk about the innovation ecosystem in India. And I also would like to share my 2 or 3 tips on engaging with India based on my last 3.5 years in the market. And now, 2017 was the peak of the Indian startup funding at $13.5 billion in investment in startups across more than 800 deals. Now, looking at what's happening in the world since then, there is a downward trend. This has declined since then, around about 6% in 2018, another 6.5% in 2019, and a big dip in 2020 because of COVID. But in 2020, there were 881 deals and almost $10 billion invested in the Indian startup ecosystem. What's hot in funding here in India? Telemedicine, healthcare, edtech, SaaS, e-commerce, agri-farmer related apps, apps around and solutions around brokerage, and quite a lot in the fintech sector. And in the fintech sector, they focus a lot on the UPI, the Unified Payment Gateways. In the last 10 years, the startup sector has come a long way here in India, and I appreciate there are many people in the room today who are quite familiar with India, like I was, 3.5 years ago when I arrived here. But it's the sector has changed rapidly, and the way young people these days engage, those who are in the tech sector, engineering colleges, the way they approach the job market these days is quite different. Young people are actively looking at getting into business and commercializing their ideas, and that's all possible because of the global private equity funds being very, very active here in India. And also, we have to mention that there are several initiatives by the Indian government, and also a key policy around the allowing of the CSR funding into startups. Now you can Google all of this. There are some 40,000 active startups. It all sounds very, very encouraging, but let me also point out that India is one of the most competitive market in the world, and we will just cover that in a little bit detail now. So just talk about market development here in India. So I'd just like to, I think we all know the positives. So I would just like to focus on some considerations that all Australian businesses should consider when they're developing your approach to the market. You have to treat India like a mini Europe, with many states, with their own culture, own language, own food, and own way of doing business. So many people make this mistake of approaching India as one market. So you have to really approach India regionally. In fact, it's better if you just target one state at a time and develop your approach. So I have 3 bits of advice for the participants, and they are research and preparedness, long-term horizon, and localization strategy. So on research and preparedness, when I was working in Australia and working with a lot of Australian businesses, and I say that where language is an issue, particularly like markets like China and Japan, our companies spend a lot of time in researching the market and getting prepared. whereas this I find is a bit of an issue here in India, because people think that everyone speaks English. We have a very similar culture, similar legal background, and I find that often too many companies who haven't done enough research and prepared for the market. You have to form a current view of India. Your view of India, which was 12 months old, 2 years old, 5, 10 years old, is no longer relevant. It has to be based on evidence. It has, and you can't just take hearsay as your research. You have to move on from the stereotypes that are available on social media. It is a highly connected country now in terms of data and connectedness. So it is quite a different. You have to understand the culture. You have to understand how people operate. Sometimes people who don't understand the culture find it very difficult to operate. So people do operate quite differently. There are things like short notice for requests, direct questions. Language is sometimes a bit direct, too formal. Phones will ring in the meeting. So unless you understand why that happens, people can find that a little bit annoying and give up too easily. So you have to spend a bit of time understanding how things are done here. You have to understand the local decision-making hierarchy. Second thing is in researching, you have to understand who you're dealing with. You will find a lot of organizations that you're dealing with are quite large, and size does matter here in a market like this. And often I find that Australian companies are underselling themselves. So when you're dealing with a large Indian organization, you have to talk yourself up. A lot of Australian companies, particularly small and startups, they often talk about their humble beginnings, and so I think you have to do quite the opposite. You have to focus on your innovation and focus on the problem that you're solving rather than your small operations. Understand and be clear about your capability. You have to be very clear about what do you bring to the table and what problem are you solving. The problem that you're solving, does that exist here in the market, and is it exactly the same problem? We spoke about understanding hierarchy, and you have to make a long-term commitment. So often we find that businesses they come under the impression that they have an amazing product and they will make a pitch and people will be ready to buy their product. Often on one or two pitches. So it is a market like many other markets in Asia, where you need a long-term planning horizon. You have to commit to the market. I'm sure Margaret's story will talk about that. And you have to demonstrate that commitment. You have to be here in the market. You have to understand and build relationships. And the last point is around localization. And localization is not just about cost. Cost is a very important aspect of localization, but you have to understand, as I said, the problem you're solving and how your technology fits in solving the problem. And you have to figure out a way of how to localize, how you're going to support your partners and customers here in the market. Once again, I find too many people who think they can fly in and fly out and with their amazing technology, and people will be ready to adopt the solutions, which does not happen. So you have to have a very strong localization approach. So I will conclude with my 3 takeaways, which is research and preparedness, engage with your customers, develop an India literate leadership and middle management and some team here who can communicate with the market, plan for the long term. You've heard it too many times, patience and persistence is the key for India, and having boots on the ground. It is a long-term play. I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to engaging with you all, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Munish. Some excellent insights there, and I know they're going to be so valuable to the cohort and everyone who just joined today. Over to Margaret Faux today. It's an absolute pleasure to have Margaret, who has scaled into India. So someone who's really done it at a tremendous level. Margaret's the founder and CEO of Synapse Medical, a medtech company offering digital medical administration solutions globally, operating from 3 offices in Sydney, Chennai and Dubai. Margaret is one of Australia's leading experts on the legal and administrative structure and operation of Australia's health system, such as Medicare. As a businesswoman, Margaret is passionate, and you're going to hear that in just a moment, about technology and this space that everyone is here to hear about today. Margaret drives innovation in her business using disruptive technologies such as building Australia's first medical building app with Australia's only rules engine. And she's automated the critical global health system process of clinical coding. It's incredibly intricate, Margaret. I can't wait to hear from you. Delighted to welcome you today, and I'm sure there's a few stories you're about to share. Over to you, Margaret.
Thank you so much, Hayley. Thank you, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here. I can't tell you how much pleasure it gives me to encourage other Australian businesses to join those of us who are already in India, but encouraging female entrepreneurs is a particular passion of mine, as it is for many people on this call today. So I'm absolutely delighted to be here and very excited about this program. So what I'm going to do in the next 15 minutes is just talk in a bit of a rapid fire way, because I get quite excited about India and my journey. But I'm going to share with you some of the decisions I made and why I made them and how I did what I've done. But I'm also going to be very open with you about some of the mistakes I've made so that you don't make them. So let me just kick off. So my India journey started in 1990. My husband and I were backpacking around India, and I was a 20-something woman, and I just fell in love with India, just couldn't get enough of it. So we kept going back to India, and we even took our children back to India when they were sort of just at beginning high school. And we've travelled the length and breadth of India and really just can't get enough of it. So, so many years later, when I was expanding my business to India, India was a natural fit for me. It just felt like the natural thing to do. And I remember late in 2009, I said to my husband one night, listen, I'm going to India. I'm going to find some partners for Synapse. Do you want to come? And as another fellow India enthusiast, he said, yep, I'm there. Let's get on a plane. So off we went. Now, my first mistake was Googling potential partners in India. So first tip, don't Google to find partners in India. And you already are doing better than me because you've joined this event today, because you're actually engaging with people that are there to help and support you. I didn't do that. And it's been an interesting journey. Look, we went to Chennai in South India, and the reason I did that is there's a lot of reasons for that. So one was when we were traveling in Chennai many years ago, I remembered the high levels of education of the average person in Chennai, and also I knew that Tamil Nadu had one of the highest English literacy rates anywhere in India, and that was going to be very important for the work that I needed done. I was also, I was getting very excited, I remember, because I loved India so much. And I thought, look, if I'm going to be doing business in India, I'm going to have to travel to India a lot. Because, you know, I'm a business leader that believes that you have to be, you've got to stand on the factory floor. You have to be amongst your workers regularly if you really want to know what's going on in your organization. So I thought, yay, I have to travel to India very, very frequently, lucky me. And I knew that the trip to Chennai, it's almost a straight line, Sydney to Chennai via Singapore. So it meant that I could be on a plane, the Singapore Airlines flight at midday, Sydney time, and I was on the ground in Chennai, 10 p.m. local time, same day, no jet lag, no problems, straight to my hotel, into bed, up at work the next morning in the Chennai office, didn't miss a beat. So it worked very well for me. And prior to COVID, I was up and down to India about every 6 or 7 weeks. So I'd come back to Australia, spend 5 or 6 weeks in Australia, and then back on the plane up to Chennai. But obviously COVID's changed all of that. So one of the things is, I just wanted to say that whilst I'm very clearly a South India enthusiast, South India may not be the right state for your business. It will depend on a whole host of factors, as Munish has rightly pointed out. So to work out where to enter India, your 2 strategy documents, all the work's been done for you. So there's the India Economic Strategy, authored by Peter Varghese in Australia, and then the reciprocal Australia Economic Strategy, authored by Ambassador Wadhwa. If you haven't already, download both of those and get reading now, because they are your blueprint. So look, the other thing, so don't find your partners on Google like I did. Engage with the business chambers is a very important thing to do, and do what you're doing now. So the Australia-India Business Council at the Sydney end, but also the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce at the other end. And I would encourage you to be connected with both. And let me just give you a story about how that works. So one day in Chennai, some years ago, my phone rang early in the morning in my hotel room, and it was from an Australian number that I didn't know. So I answered the call, and on the other end of the phone was this Aussie bloke called Sam. And Sam said to me, listen, I've spent a lot of money with some very expensive consultants to get a market entry strategy prepared for me. Cost me, you know, a lot of money. We're in the tens of thousands of dollars. And he said, I'm just not happy with the advice. I just don't believe that they've actually really, integrated what I need for my business. And he said, so look, I've run the Indo-Australian Chamber of Commerce in Chennai, and I said to them, I want to speak to an Australian who is in Chennai. I want to speak to one. Do you have one? And so they had passed my number to Sam, and Sam called me. So it's just a little example of how important that network is, and accessing other Australians doing the same thing. As it transpired, I said to Sam, well, what's your business? What do you do? What do you need? Why do you want to be in India? And at the end of the call, about 5 minutes later, I said to him, tear up your report. Come to Chennai. You don't need to be in the north of India. Come to Chennai. It'll suit what you need perfectly well. And 6 weeks later, and I said, there happens to be an office vacant next door to me. Why don't you lease that? And so 6 weeks later, Sam had established his office, his private limited company, and his office next door to me in Chennai. Sam and I are still very, very close, and we support each other all the time. So, in terms of the successes and failures of, my initial contracted partners, I had 3. It was very apparent to me very quickly that one was a mistake, and so I extracted myself from that business relationship very quickly. The other 2 lasted for 5 years and were reasonably successful. But the reason I pivoted from partnering and having contracted relationships to actually having my own incorporated company in India was because as we were growing and getting more and more sort of public government type contracts with public hospitals, we deal with health data, so high security sensitive data. I felt I couldn't adequately control human resources, quality, and security. And as we were growing, those 3 things were becoming more and more important, that I felt I needed full control over it. So in 2015, I incorporated Synapse Medical Services India Private Limited, and set up my own office over there. We started with a team of 40, and we're now more than double that. And I've been there now for a total of like 10 years in total, but 5 with my own company there. And we're all working from home with COVID, and it's fine. Everybody says setting up a business in India is really hard. That's not my experience. It just is not my experience. I've heard it over and over and over again, and I actually don't understand it. We do have the Westminster system of parliamentary democracy in India as well. And as a lawyer, I guess that made it easier for me because the legal documents are familiar to me. But I think they are to everyone, right? The difference between setting up a proprietary limited company in Australia and a private limited company in India is not that different. You know, your constitution, your memorandum, articles of association, directors, shareholders, it's all much the same. So it didn't feel very hard to navigate, to be honest, but you do have to have a good lawyer. Step one, get a good lawyer. And you don't need big, expensive lawyers. And as startups, you can't afford them anyway. So you've got to find a really good local lawyer, which of course is something I did first up. And without him, it would have been impossible. So I've got a fabulous, small local law firm in Chennai, and he's brilliant. So you need to have good lawyers, obviously. Now, look, some of the things that happened that were really surprising and wonderful. International organisations started contacting me through various means, LinkedIn and various other ways that we all connect, saying, wow, we'd really like to do business with you. You clearly have a global outlook because you've set up an office in India. You wouldn't do that if you didn't think globally. Now, I hadn't sort of thought about that when I was doing it, but clearly it sent a message to the world at large that if you are an Australian and you've got an Australian office, that's great. But if you're an Australian and you've got an Indian office, you have global ambitions. And in fact, that was part of the catalyst to enable us to open our third office in Dubai. And in fact, if you're doing business in the Middle East, it's almost compulsory to have some form of office in India as well. So we grew again as a result of having the India office. Look, the other obvious things are there's time difference benefits that didn't expect. So we service our clients right up until midnight Sydney time, and it doesn't change anybody's working hours. So the little things like that have been really advantageous. Look, I just want to tell you one story that didn't go so well. So when I first started with my own company, so I'm employing my own team now, and I got my management team on board first, and I already knew people, so I got some very good managers in. And because I felt I might be vulnerable to criticism that I might be exploiting a lower cost market, I decided to set the benchmark for our salaries very high, right? I thought, right, I am never going to be accused of exploiting a lower cost workforce. So I said to my managers, right, we're going to pay everyone this amount. And I set it really, really high. And I saw my managers, they were coughing and spluttering. They were almost sort of falling off their chairs saying, are you sure about that, Margaret? You sure you want to do that? And I was, yes, I won't engage in any further conversations about it. This is the minimum we will be paying our team. And of course, very soon after I learned that in the Indian workforce, there's an expectation that the annual increases in your salary are like 10 or 20%, as opposed to in Australia where they're like 2 or 3 or maybe 5%. And I thought, oh, I'm going to send the company broke. So that's another tip. You know, you need to meet the market. And unlike me, if you've got good advisors around you, probably good to listen to them as well. There's a question I'm sure on all of your lips. What's it like being a woman in business in India? Look, like all of you, I experience daily challenges navigating a patriarchal world. We all do. But I don't see them as having geographic boundaries. It's not country specific. And in fact, I have found the Indian business community has been really very welcoming of me as a female leader. As Munish has said, the best deals take place over many cups of sweet milky chai. So don't think you can parachute in, have a lunch and do a deal and it's all done and out you go. It doesn't work like that in India. You need to build relationships. So I'd get on Zoom and start having your Zoom chais as quickly as you can to build those relationships. So I hope that's, I've got to, finish up now because I know there's other speakers. I hope that's given you just a little bit of insights. I just want to finish by saying it's been one of the best business decisions I have ever made. It's just been hands down wonderful. And, you know, I have no regrets, zero. There's things I might have done a bit differently, but I'd never wish I hadn't done it. In fact, I wish I'd done it sooner. There's a palpable drive to exceed expectations and a dedication to global engagement in India. Initiatives like this that you are participating in with all the government support that's available at the moment should give you the confidence to know that startups and SMEs can definitely succeed in India. So go for it, ladies. Congrats to the 2021 cohort. And I hope to see many of you in India very soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, Margaret. I am now inspired. At Bootcamp, we will open with our Zoom chai. That's a necessity. Thank you for those insights. I think it's just so important to hear from someone on the ground who's been there and done that. It helps dispel the myths that we all think about the difficulties of entering into India. It's more about knowing how to do it right. And that's why these conversations and programs are so important. So thank you so much for your time today. I'd like to move to our next speaker, Ms. Madhavi Shankar. Madhavi is the CEO and founder of Space Basic. She's a Forbes Asia 30 under 30 listed founder, a United Nations youth speaker, TEDx speaker, Government of India and UN top 30 Women Transforming India. Madhavi's built and scaled a SaaS platform in India, which has revolutionized the student housing experience. Madhavi, really looking forward to hearing from you today. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm really honored to be here to share my story from India to Australia and now back to India, and hopefully a few of my learnings as well. So how this started was, after my engineering here in India, I was planning to go overseas. I read about Sydney, fell in love with Sydney, applied to the University of Technology, so I got my master's from there. And while I was there, I started working for a very early stage startup. Now, this is back in 2012 when startup wasn't a buzzword. So it was really an early stage company. And, what I experienced there was the ability to play multiple roles, wear multiple hats, and really kind of come to understand what it takes to building companies and what it really takes to scale and fail and do it again. And I guess that's where my love for startups really began. And having this exposure to startups and how to build companies, especially in the enterprise tech domain, I kind of knew that I wanted to start something on my own. And around 2016, during a trip to the US, to the Bay Area, I met with my co-founder. We both shared a passion because we were educated overseas. My experiences that I had as an international student in Australia, I could draw a very clear difference to that to what I had back in India. So I kind of wanted Indian students to experience that in terms of practical learning, in terms of access to just access to things on your fingertips versus having to have so many steps to attain it. So with that goal, I moved back to India in 2017, started Space Basic. And for me, I think one thing that I was very, very important, and what I've learned through my startup journey back in Australia, was due diligence is key. And I think grassroots due diligence to what problem we're going to be solving. Will people respond to this, and will people pay money for this, right? So these were some of the three questions that I had to have answered with a lot of due diligence, spoke with a lot of end users, customers, to really gauge their feedback. And we worked with a couple of pilot users very closely, said, hey, look, we're going to give you this product for free. I really want to understand what is your pain point, how can we solve it. So I think a customer feedback driven loop really helped with having that first version of the product out. So 3 years later, we've had 300% growth year on year. Space Basic, what we do is we are a digital data platform where we kind of automate day-to-day tasks and communication within universities and their student housing communities. And while being in India, what we also realized realized is India is in the brink of digitization, and we see that happening in front of our eyes every single day. And I think COVID has kind of expedited that process as well. And we see a lot of data being churned within universities and educational institutions, but there are really no insights, or there's no analytics to really help them do a better job, make more actionable data-driven insights. So we thought now that, hey, let's work on that. So I think what I'm trying to say with this is the opportunities are many, but try to pick a problem and which is very evident to the eye, where people will really embrace it. So, after 3 years of working in India, today we work with about 160,000 users, about 60 to 70 customers pan-India. And, we raised some money this year from Silicon Valley investors. It was more of a strategic raise. We are a cash flow break-even company, and we raised money to be in the US market as well as in the Australian market, to take space basic there and kind of build the technology to support that. Now, some of my learnings during this process of me being here and starting a company here was to do with, like Munish said, India is a very culturally driven market. And it's very important to be connected to the people, and it can't be a rip and replace kind of a solution. If we're doing something in tech, or if we're doing something in SaaS, it really has to be, it has to connect with the customers here. Just to give you an example, what we thought that would work ideally, for the US market when I was building Space Basic, we'd later realize that India, even for higher education, has their parents involved in a lot of decision-making capacities. So we had to then iterate the product to kind of incorporate that. So that was one of my takeaways, was definitely India is a very culturally driven market. A great place to start for tech-enabled solutions is the cosmopolitan metropolitan cities, Bangalore, Mumbai, Chennai. So these are the cities where people will embrace technology more compared to maybe tier 2, tier 3 cities. And apart from that, I think with hiring, I've never worked in India before starting my company Space Basic, but one thing I learned is the way people work in Australia versus the way people work in India is very different. So I think, again, culturally driven. It has to be very quite a few touch points, etc. So I think managing people is very important, to have local mentors and local leaders to kind of work with the team and build the team. But apart from that, I would say get a mentor, get a local mentor who's been there, done that in that specific field. Or that's like, let's say, sales or marketing or product, etc. So I think it's important to get local mentors, and I think fundamentally why startups work anyway is because of resilience. And I think resilience and persistence is everything. So not giving up and being resilient definitely adds with the rest of the amalgam to successfully launch or enter into the Indian market.
Thanks, Madhavi. Some incredible insights there as well. And as you say, opportunities are many, and it's picking where to start is really key. We have some tremendous mentors, equating to 100 mentors for the program between India and Australia. And we can't wait to support our cohort with those. As you say, their mentors are really, really key. Thank you so much for your time today. It's my pleasure to welcome Miss Sarah Kirlew of the Australian Consul General for South India. Welcome, Sarah.
Thanks very much. And thanks everyone for having me today. Wow, what an inspiring set of speakers we've had so far. I think I've gained a lot from this discussion, and I think it's been a really interesting presentation with a lot of rich tips for you all on how to succeed in India. I really liked that Margaret started with a bit of an overview of her India journey, and perhaps I'll just give you a taste of the same. So I first had a posting here in India 10 years ago. I spent 3 years working at our High Commission in Delhi between 2008 and 2011. And, if we take a snapshot of India at that stage, it already had a reputation for providing back office services for international companies. But in terms of the tech integration into day-to-day life, it was very minimal. Flipkart was just starting up, one of India's first e-commerce providers, as I left Delhi. But there was nothing, there was no kind of online payment gateways, there was no online banking. Still every week, the bank courier came to the High Commission because you had to do so much business in cash that, I had a checkbook. The one and only time in my life I've had a checkbook was when I was here last. But now India is just in a different space. Everything, is virtual. The kind of ease of doing that, frictionless transactions, online shopping, the data flows that people have talked about, including from, Indian government-owned systems where they've really worked hard to make everyone have a digital identity linked to a bank account. So I think if you're looking at a market that's really in a growth phase and so ripe to adopt technology startups, it's hard to think of anywhere better than India. But I just want to start by acknowledging my fellow panelists and the interesting insights they've provided. Munish with those 3 really practical tips, Margaret with her super interesting journey with Davi, and of course the We at inQ team for pulling this great event together. Thank you for that. We are proud and pleased to be a supporter of inQ here at the Australian Consulate General in Chennai. We've funded the sister program, which supports startups from India to Australia, but we're also very pleased to be part of this ecosystem of support and to link this group of participants and this program with others that we work with, like WeHub, which is based in Hyderabad, and GWAS, our new partner at the Andhra Pradesh MedTech Zone in AP. So thanks very much for the chance to be here. I thought what I would do is just set out very briefly some of the broader context of the Australia-India relationship at the moment, where tech sits in that, maybe some words on South India, and then move to why it is that we want to focus on women in tech and the broader women in leadership agenda. The Australia-India relationship, our Prime Ministers agreed in mid-2020 that we have a comprehensive strategic partnership. Now, that's pretty kind of arcane diplomatic terminology, but essentially means we're the best of friends. And sitting under that are a lot of new programs and new funding to support linkages between the 2 countries. In terms of strategic and defence alignment, I think it would be fair to say Australia and India have never been closer. And you see that through things like our mutual participation in initiatives like the Quad, which brings together Australia, India, the US, and Japan. And I think that's relevant for you all when you think about the space that you're working in, that there's now a kind of commonality of ambition and focus between those 4 countries. And I imagine all 4 might be markets for you. People-to-people links are the other really strong feature of the relationship. So the Indian-born community in Australia has doubled in size in the last 10 years. It's now around 750,000 people, and we expect it will double again in the next 10 years as India maintains its place as Australia's largest source of skilled migrants. So, you've heard from a number of speakers about the importance of understanding the Indian market, or perhaps having a local presence on the ground. So think about how that Australian Indian community can help, or the large number of Indian students at Australian educational institutions. That's a group of people who have some of the expertise you need and the linkages that you need. In terms of the economic relationship, Australia is a trusted supplier of resources at one end of the economic kind of system to India, and then our relationship is really about services. So Indian students coming to Australia for education, and then the mutual exchange of technology services. And so I mentioned before that 10 years ago, India was sort of known for back office processing, but now it's like at the other end, right? Big Australian firms are here doing their high-end software development. Atlassian, Telstra, ANZ, all got big campuses in Bangalore, just, to mention a few. And then there's great, entrepreneurs like Margaret who are doing their thing in other Indian cities. You've heard about the India economic strategy and the Australia economic strategy. Just endorse the recommendation to have a read of those. They really capture a lot of great expertise you need for your business. The Austrade website, Munish spoke to you previously, have a look at that. That's got good practical tips. And then there are the business associations, the Indo-Australia Chamber of Commerce and the Australia-India Business Council. But also, groups like Asia Link, have a browse of their websites. You'll get good tips there. There's also something called the International Cyber and Critical Technology Engagement Strategy. Now, that was released by the Foreign Minister probably about 2 months ago now, and it sets out what it is that Australia sees as the imperatives for the global tech environment in terms of what we need to do to secure our security, our prosperity, and our values. That's an important lead on some of the big issues that are front of mind for policymakers, and which are going to be important if you want to apply for sort of funding rounds and grants that are led by government, because that's what's front of mind for those decision makers. You heard a lot about South India, and I should be, I guess, loyal to my fellow consuls general. So we have someone based in Mumbai who covers Western India, someone in Calcutta for the East, and of course our High Commission in Delhi. They would probably all tell you that there are opportunities in their region, but I'm happy to say I reckon South India probably has some of the most prospective markets for tech and the most developed ecosystems. So look around, look at the services that are available. There are a lot of incubators here that you might be able to tap into, a lot of good services. And I know that some of the programs that you're going to go through will help you to identify those. Also, don't be scared to ask for specific help on specific issues. So if you've got a question, there's a pool of knowledge now around you. I think, I want to enter the India market. That's a big question, and you'll be able to get some useful advice from this program, but actually drill down into your business plan. What's the next level? Which city is it that has a lead in my sector? How do I find a local lawyer? These sort of questions, people know they can share their expertise with you. And I think another strong theme of this discussion has been mentorship and the importance of drawing on that. I read an article in the newspaper today actually about women in tech and what a challenge it is. Only one of the big Indian unicorns so far has been led by a woman, but it doesn't mean there aren't more coming. And we need to support each other. And there's a lot of good research that says that women can be the biggest enablers of other women and are often really pleased to do so. Maybe a personal anecdote. DFAT, the Foreign Service, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, our first female Foreign Secretary, Frances Adamson, just retired from service. And I had the pleasure to work with Frances in Beijing, and she was a mentor to me through my career journey. And one thing she would always say is that, for women, there are often particular points in your career, like when you have your first baby or when you suddenly feel like, how do I balance all of this? Where you need to reach out to other women and say, well, how did you do it? But also when other women often will be able to be kind to you and say, actually, look, let me help you in this way. And then when we've all benefited from that, to be able to pay it forward. So I think, building these networks of support for each other are just crucial. So women in tech, I've deviated a bit from my talking points, but and why we support startups. So startups are really the lifeblood of this whole tech ecosystem. We want to make sure that as we engage with you at the ground level, we're growing with you, we're helping you to grow, because Australia-India links in startups are going to help us achieve those objectives we want to see at the international level on prosperity, security, and values, on rules and norms. You're the lifeblood of this ecosystem pumping in. So we are very proud to be supporters of this, and we want to keep doing it. And then the tech element, the women in leadership element, is another really important aspect of Australia's foreign policy. So we have a Women in STEM decadal plan that wants to support you over the next 10 years, which I guess all goes to say, please feel like, please really feel that there's a group of supporters out there for you. And I see I've got the warning hand, so I'll stop there. But thanks again for having me. Thanks to my fellow panelists. Really pleased to be here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's wonderful to hear around the focus on women and the focus on technology, the new funding, and that the link between our two nations has never been stronger. So thank you to Sarah and the Australian Consul General for your support. To wrap today, thank you so much for your time. The We at inQ program is really timely as the opportunity to scale into India is now. It's, as Sarah said, India's in a growth phase. They're well digitized and they're performing really well as a virtually set up country. So we look forward to working with the 14 companies we've proudly selected for the inaugural cohort at We at inQ program. Congratulations again to all the founders selected. And as Sarah said, you are the lifeblood, so take that away today. Anyone interested in applying for next year, we will follow up with you. We have your emails from today, so you expect more information on that, so you have the opportunity to join us in the next cohort. With great thanks to our esteemed speakers today and of course partners, we couldn't do this without you, and looking forward to working with you going forward in the program. Thank you all and for attending today. Please stay safe and thank you for joining the inaugural We at inQ launch. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'll just end the session. Thank you.